Welcome all to our show Sankofa. Your host today is Nhongo under the leadership of Bishop Maponga. Today we are touching on a very sensitive topic which you have seen on the news running all over, the VETS protest that took place just a few days ago. It's very close to my heart because not so long ago, few years ago, 2015, 2014, we were busy protesting for free decolonized quality education, where we were also fighting against the eradication of exclusion of our students in South Africa. And we are looking at the situation now compared to the situation back then. Do we see much of a difference? I mean, back then we were fighting for free decolonized quality education. We were fighting for the exclusion, or rather fighting against the exclusion of students. And we are seeing these students, three years later, they are still doing the same, under the same condition, also facing police brutality that we faced 3 years ago. But if you go even further, you will see that in 1976, the youth of 1976 were also fighting for their education. And again, they faced the same hostility from the police guys. But the difference is the police brutality in 1976 was white against blacks, and now we are saying black against black. And today with me I have a very, very special guest, Busang Lesia. He's following his name. We are Busa Evets, following his name, being part of the student protest at VETS. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Solo, and good day to you and your viewers. My name is Busang Lesia. I'm from the East Rand. I'm currently a student at VETS, and then I'm a former student at NWU.
Welcome to the show, sir. I want us to start with your very interesting post that you posted not long ago. Very interesting. It says, a black man was shot by a black police guy. Yeah. Black police guy who was trying to destabilize a protest led by black students who are fighting for the eradication of financial exclusion amongst the black students in the very same institution led by a black vice chancellor in the very same country where the minister of higher education is black, a so-called communist serving under the cabinet of a black president. Please take us through that statement.
The post which I posted on WhatsApp a few days ago was just somewhat a trigger to the issue of black self-hate. I personally felt very touched when I learned that a black man was shot by a black policeman due to the issue of trying to destabilize the protest by black students. I personally feel like we as black people have a problem with each other, and we find it hard to allow one another to strive in this world. Instead of us trying to advocate for one another and push the black agenda and its interests, we always find it easier to rather pull each other down. I don't know if I'm making sense, but black people and black self-hate is something that is very deep and problematic to say the least.
Then you find the very same minister says, no, this guy was not part of the protest. He's saying, don't worry about him because he's not part of the students. I'm only the minister of the students.
Which is another problem when it comes to Mr. Blade Nzimande. The man has proven on numerous occasions that he does not care. You can see with the level of casualty that he treats issues. Last year, when COVID-19 started, the man was always the last minister to air the problems and to give us a way forward as students. He was always the last minister to say this is going to happen henceforth. He was always the last minister to pitch, and on certain occasions you'd find that there was a time set that maybe at 2:30 the Minister of Higher Education, Mr. Blade Nzimande, is going to come on a certain channel. Then they would say no, that airing is postponed for tomorrow or later. You understand? And then you find students were in destitute at the time. Students were at home and they didn't know what to do. Should we come back to school to learn, or should we stay home where there's no Wi-Fi connection and fail? So students were very confused at the time, but the man did not show any sense of agency whatsoever.
He's never shown any sense of agency. You look at the Fees Must Fall protest, he was still the same Minister of Higher Education, but under the same cabinet, and they're not doing anything about it. But tell us about the nitty-gritties of the protest itself that took place on Wednesday at VETS. What were you guys fighting for?
The protest itself on Wednesday, as you have mentioned, was triggered by the issue of financial exclusion. returning students could not register as a result of outstanding fees. And then there were new students. The first years could not even register themselves because Blade Nzimande was not giving us a way forward with regards to NAFSAs. So Mr. Blade Nzimande and his NAFSAs cabal are still rather derailing us in terms of getting the academic year started. Yes, so that was predominantly the issue that triggered the protest itself. But then we have other issues which were awoken up by the protest, which are issues which were fought by the Fees Must Fall generation, which was free decolonized education.
Yes. So I want to understand, you are saying that there is financial exclusion.
Yes.
Mr. Blade Nzimande himself, not long ago, he issued out a statement that NSFAS doesn't have enough money. There will be some certain courses that will not be funded come 2021. Can you take us through your understanding? What did he mean?
The man just gave us an abrupt statement, which was really, really disrespectful, to say the least. How can you tell students that they are not going to be funded at the 11th hour? Like, you can't just come to me now and say it's January, Busang, you're not going to be funded. This was supposed to be communicated at least November, and then I could try and alternate, maybe ask a brother, maybe go to a bank and ask students, or maybe sit down with my parents and say, parents, this is the situation, I need funding for the next year, as NAFSAs will not fund me anymore. But the man just kept quiet, as well as his NAFSAs cabal, and now students are left in destitute, as I said before. Students don't know what to do as we are speaking right now. There are students who are at accommodations right now, don't know how they are going to pay. They only have registration, man. You can have that 9,000 to register, but how are you going to carry out the rest of the fees?
So registration is shooting up to 9,000 for registration.
This year actually it was 9,300 and something.
Wow.
Adverts, and in some institutions, I had learned that at NW Potchefstroom, the registration was 10.2. So
you lie.
Yes, so it's like school fees. It's school fees, yes.
It's actually a full year school fees when you go to high.
And it's just registration.
No, this is actually not just painful, but it's a shame to our government, because on daily basis we watch our government rescuing other institutions like SAA, rescuing other institutions like ESCOM. In the dire situation where we claim that in South Africa we don't have money, but you will never find the very same government rescuing students and saying, let's borrow money somewhere and fund all these students, because at the end of the day, education is the fundamental liberator. It's those students who must then go back and be competent at ESCOM. It's those students who must then go back and be competent at SAA. So we are busy now solving these issues at a foot level, upper level, and it's becoming a vicious circle where we are supposed, either than uprooting the problem and saying, let us stop now rescuing these SAA and ESCOM, because anyway they are looting this money. We know that it's political appointments. We know that it's corruption taking place right there. Yet they are not coming together to say, no, come, let's rescue our students.
I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the issue of ESCOM and SAA as one of those companies which are always rescued. And you also answered yourself when you mentioned looting.
Yes.
The reason why the government is so heavily vested in trying to always save these state-owned companies is because they are looting, as you say, and there's no way you can loot in the education sector besides uplifting the black child. You understand?
True. I think it's shocking, because if you look back on free, decolonized, quality education, has anything changed at that time when we were fighting for free, decolonized, quality education up to now? What kind of education are you now experiencing at university? But I want us to look at that topic as we come back from the break. I mean, here you are listening to Busang Lesia talking about the WITS protest and the struggles that students have been experiencing as black people, having to prove ourselves that we are poor and we can't afford education. After the break, we are coming. Thank you.
Feel the heat.
You said you love me.
I do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Leave my house and you go.
Oh, no, you don't. Get out of my way. Get out.
That is an abomination.
Oh, the love you promised me.
Do you have a boyfriend? Yeah?
Feel the excitement.
You don't know how I've been longing for this.
Feel the heat with Starsat.
God is so amazing.
Feel the heat.
The Bible says that through his death on the cross, we are now reconciled with our Father.
Forgive and you shall be forgiven.
So wherever God takes us, we're just excited about it.
As a child of God, where you are, you must have an hour of prayer.
Feel the excitement.
In the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus.
I believe that God is working right now.
Feel the heat with Starsat.
Make massive moves.
Wow. Let's go. Come on, we can be back by morning.
Who are you?
I'm the boss.
Really?
Really?
Yeah! Awesome! Totally! Yeehaw! Very funny.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
You're the best fighter in China.
Give me the Emperor's sword, and I'll spare your life.
Shisha sect has gone too far.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
When the colonizers came to Africa, the first thing that they dealt with was education, knowing that education is the key to colonizing a person, including language as one of the ways to colonize. And that is why today you find us speaking in English, because we were colonized long ago. But they understood the power of education and how it can deal with the mind. And they ensure that as they teach us their style of education, they are teaching us to be obedient slaves and obedient students who will take instructions. And today, we want to understand that from the part of fighting free, decolonized, quality education up to now, is there any difference in our education sector?
Now we're talking about the fees must fall generation, right?
Yes.
Those guys were, I want to dissect it into two different intervals. We had the free education, yes, as you mentioned, and then we had the decolonized education part. Definitely. When we are talking about free education, we were talking about no fees. Yes. We were talking about giving kids access to free education, yes, deserving students.
Yes. They must just come to institution and study. They mustn't stand in the queue, write affidavits, yes, prove how poor they are. I mean, the government knows that they are poor. They are eating their tax money already.
So they know, yes, they understand. So with the issue of free education, I remember the issue started with Wits yes, University, whereby they said we cannot pay the interest fees, yes, and we are asking the government to add on our government subsidies, yes, in order for the universities to not raise the fees.
Yes.
And then on to the decolonized
education segment.
Our current education is focused on creating laborers. I don't know if I'm making sense, but the current diaspora in our education, yes, sector is heavily focused on ensuring that you are well trained. Yes. It's just a preparatory program for you to enter the workspace and become a work slave. Yes. And it's not a platform for you to liberate yourself into becoming a creative, a person who's going to invent something tomorrow. Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's how it's been structured currently. You understand? You enter a lecture hall and you are given something. You ought to study that thing, copy it as it is, and that will be measured as your level of intelligence. You understand? So you are basically a human machine, if I may put it that way. You are being trained to take instruction and do exactly as you are being told, and then you are going to be given that certificate and say, no, you're a graduate of whatsoever. Imagine. But nothing creative was triggered and nothing solution-based was even triggered in that mind of yours, you understand? You just went there, you got that mindset of, when I exit this place, I want to go and work at so and so and so, a firm or a business entity. Yes. Understand? Yes.
And now let's go to the free part of things, the free education, because you divided into two segments, yes, yes, the free education and the decolonized yes, education. When we look at the free education, you discover, when I was still at varsity, that the budget for NSFAS was about 7.7 billion.
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
Money, too much.
But the challenge that we looked at was that first it must go to the officials. Second, it must then go to the offices of NSFAS, where the administrators are sitting. It must pay rent.
Yes.
Then thirdly, it must pay the employees within the NSFAS office. Now, during that process, amongst the employees, there's also what we call corruption processes that it must also pay. By the time it gets to students, it's no longer 7.7
It's
billion.
no longer enough, yes.
Now it means now, that 7.7 billion could have directly been taken straight to the institutions and directly funded the institutions. But one, it had to go through all these processes. But secondly, if you go to university, and you go to the NSFAS queues, you discover that there are no black students within those queues. You only there are no white students within
yes.
You only find black students. Then you question yourself, where are the white students? In that very same queue, you must have a lot of paperwork with you. Yes. You must have the ID of your mother. If your father is dead, you must have death certificate. You must go and find it somewhere. You must have an affidavit that, no, I'm really, really poor.
Yes.
And that's the issue that we're fighting about, that why is education not directly free? There shouldn't be any agent, not even called NSFAS. What is your take now as the new intakers of varsity?
You know, when you mentioned the issue of free education, as well as you touched on white students not being in lines, you must understand that white people, I'm not trying to be racist here or anything, but I'm just
don't
stating
be apologetic.
Yes. But the facts remain that white people are at advantage. White kids are at advantage compared to their black counterparts. You understand? So they won't be in those lines.
Yes.
Their families are going to pay for that education whilst they are seated at home waiting for the academic year to proceed.
Yes.
You, by the way, are standing in those long queues and you are frustrated. You are not even frustrated because of your academics. No, you are frustrated because of your financial inabilities.
Yes.
Which is really sad, to say the least. And then you touched on why is it not free after fees must fall.
Yes.
Fees must fall. There was a call
yes.
for free education.
Yes.
Then, okay, fast forward to 2017 when Mr. Jacob Zuma announced that himself after the NASDAQ conference. He said himself, there is now free education.
Yes.
Only to find out that there is no free education, but rather NAFSAS, the regulatory funding body, was now easing the criteria for funding.
Yes.
It took us from 120, the cutoff line,
target,
to 350,000.
Okay.
Yes. But now, that's not free.
That's not free.
It's still selective of who is going to get that education. And then if you are residing in a family whereby the income is over 350, you are going to find yourself in a problem whereby you're not going to be funded by NAFSAS. So now I am going to create a scenario for you now. Let's say I live in a house where there's 10 people.
Yes.
There's only one person who's working, but the person is working well.
Yes.
Let's say maybe the person is engineer.
Yes.
The person is earning maybe 50,000 a month. He's alone in a household of 9 people. The rest are unemployed. How is that single engineer going to pay, let's say, for 2 kids in that arrangement who are in university with that 50,000 rand? It does not make sense.
And not just any university, a very expensive
university at that. Do you understand? So it becomes a problem. You are just trying to show us, sorry, you guys must just find a way. Black child, you are on your own.
Yes.
Because in all honesty, I want to take it back to how can we solve the issue around this free education thing. If you are saying to me, I'm a president, I'm Mr. Ramaphosa, and I want to redress the inequalities of the past, and I use things such as BEE and triple BE as well as affirmative action in the corporate world. How do you expect us to even reach the corporate world without the necessary skills found in education?
True.
You understand?
Yeah.
So start by facilitating that program of readdressing within the university structure. Ensure that all black children are getting that free education as they are the previously disadvantaged group.
Yes.
Just make it clear and not be apologetic about it. Don't just say those who can afford. No, just say those who were previously disadvantaged ought to get that free education in order for them to have access to those benefits such as the BE and triple BE as well as affirmative action, which takes place in the corporate world after you have received your education, by the way.
And we're touching now on reform instead of revolution.
Yes.
So we're still being kind on them.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the protest. Mthokozisi, a young black man, just on the roadside, not part of the protest, got shot by the police guy.
Yes.
The minister of police says, no, it was just a crazy police guy who just shot him. Let's leave it there for now. Is he not crazy himself?
What a justification from a police minister. It's very saddening to hear that from a minister. Yes, yes. You cannot answer in such an insensitive manner when a minister. It's a problem. But then to touch on them, because it's the issue, the man, I got intel that he just attained his master's degree, by the way.
Yes.
He was a 35-year-old man who had a family. And apparently he was one of the breadwinners in that entire family arrangement. So as the brother said when I was watching the news yesterday, the man was the light of the family. So now I take it back to Mr. Blade Nzimande, a person who was supposed to advance black academia or black excellence in spaces of academia is now indirectly responsible for decreasing the number of graduates we have within the black populace. It's a shame, to say the least.
And we can't hide the fact that everything that we are discussing, including politics, including education, is political.
Yes.
And if we go back to FISMA's fall, it was still under the same ANC-led government. We are looking back now, still under the same ANC-led government. We've been misled in between about the free education that we will receive, and we keep regressing instead of progressing. But yet again, we have to hold young people accountable who continue to vote for this government, yet they expect to protest against the same very government. What do you have to say about that?
You know, I always question, when I'm in maybe sitting in circles with friends or people I know, I always question the integrity of the IEC. But now I've come to learn that it is not really the IEC. But indeed, people are actually going and voting on those ballot stations.
Yes.
From our elderly to our youth.
And some youth just don't appear at all.
Some don't appear. And those who tend to go to those voting stations have their own personal ulterior motives.
Yes.
You find that most young people who are in the political space look to, or rather seek to emulate whatever our current crop of leaders are doing.
Yes.
We find inspiration in what they are currently doing. So as a young man within the political space, you will say, hey, but Mr. Kwere Mantashe has done well for himself. The man now owns a mine because of his political stature.
Materialism.
Yes. So now I say to myself, hey, as Busang, if I were also to go that route and act as a curator, as an ambassador of the people, maybe one day I'll also get the chance to loot and also do the things that they are currently doing. So our current crop of young people within the political space are not genuinely for the cause. I'm not saying all, but most are not genuinely for
the cause. Yes, of course. We saw it even during FISMA's fall, when the struggle began to be destabilized by political parties. I mean, there will be another political party pulling the other ones and another pulling the other ones. And once we begin as young people to divide ourselves within the political regalia, then we are missing the core point, because the struggle we are facing is for all of us. Doesn't matter the color of the shirt you are wearing from a political party. But what could be the solution going forward?
In terms of the youth?
Yes, as young people, free education. What can we do to ensure that we really achieve what we want to achieve as young people?
Personally, I believe we ought to look beyond party lines, first of all, affiliation aside.
Yes.
Affiliation aside and focus on the common goal, which is to attain free education in our lifetime.
Yes.
We should stop with our political ulterior motives and just focus on the common goal, which is, at the end of the day, to reach a level whereby you wake up and say, I'm going to attain my free decolonized education.
Yes. Here's a call to young people. Affiliation aside, we are facing one problem, and let us unite to deal with that problem. Now, what could be your message to Blade Nzimande? Just speak to him.
Mr. Blade Nzimande, if I were to wish you were here directly, maybe to look at him face to face, but sir, history has no blank pages, and you shall be judged accordingly as time goes. And I want to tell you this, sir. You are indeed directly or indirectly responsible for a murder of a master's graduate. So, sir, you are no longer a person who has to advance the interests of black students in academia, but you are rather now the person who is responsible for destroying young people who are seeking to empower themselves through education.
That's very deep. Now, we had students who were part of FISMA's fall. Some of them even went to parliament, but they are quiet now. about the cause of free education. Please say something to them. They should be making those policies, those decisions for us.
I'm going to take it back to the issue of saying we as young politicians always have ulterior motives. When he or she was still on the ground with us, they were very vocal, very active, and very angry as a young person. But now you find that salary of an MP has just softened up a few spots, you understand? So now you no longer care about what's going on the ground, but now you are rather looking at your own personal life, you understand? But I saw a tweet from Mr. Vianney Pambo expressing his frustrations, which is very much appreciated. So, but to the rest of them, truth be told, you are now viewed as sellouts to say to the cause.
Don't be ashamed. Say it. You are sellouts.
Because just because now you are in a better position and you are somewhat forgetting what you stood for not so long ago, which is a shame, really.
Yes. Now we saw Ace Magashule joining young people. Yet he's serving under the same government, ANC-led government. This guy could, before he went to the streets to protest with young students, he could have sat in the cabinet office and said, no, let's give them free education. Or he could have taken from his salary and say, let me pay for 20. He hasn't done that, but he has shown a political stand. What could be your view?
You see, my view on what Mr. Ace did when he was doing whatever, I don't know what to call that thing, but it was just an issue of lobbying. Magashule is a very good lobbyist, if I may put it that way. From buying branches to going to the individuals, your branch chairpersons and so forth. So I think that was not genuine. Yes, I don't know what his intentions were, but I personally feel that was not genuine. The man was just lobbying because he's also in hot waters now with the government and as well as internally within the ANC structure. So I think he was just lobbying young people to say Mr. Ismail Khashula is with us.
There you have it from young people himself speaking about their struggles of education. I mean, they were only going to the protest, only armed with their student cards, yet they were attacked by policemen armed with their guns. Some of these policemen never even carried a student card in their lifetime. But we hope that they realize their mistake. And we always say, like I always say, that those who resist change, they become problem in the society. They even make problem in the society. But we hope that they will realize that there is a need for change and that they will begin now to make change and survive. And those who act and be part of change, they begin to succeed. But we say salute to all the students at WITS who are fighting for free, decolonized quality education and fighting against the exclusion of black students from the institution that is led by a black vice chancellor. City salute, Kamagwini, Aluta, continue. Till we meet again. Thank you.